Have you ever had to protect something that meant the world to you? Something so precious that just the thought of losing it made your heart hurt. Imagine that feeling, but multiply it by a million. That is exactly what Prince William faced when he found out that his mother's most famous and beloved piece of jewelry, the sapphire engagement ring that once belonged to Princess Diana, was in danger of being handled by people who didn't truly understand its value. This isn't just a story about a shiny ring or a fancy palace. It's a story about a son's love for his mother, a brother's promise to protect his family's history, and a future king's determination to make sure that nothing and no one could ever change the way the world remembers Diana. What happened next in the royal vault at Windsor Castle sent shockwaves through the entire royal family and left everyone wondering just how far William was willing to go to honor his mother's memory. Now, let's get into the real heart of this story. Imagine you are the person in charge of the most secure room in all of Windsor Castle. Your job is to guard priceless treasures that have been in the royal family for generations. It's a normal day, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, Prince William shows up. He didn't call ahead. He didn't bring any of his usual helpers or advisors. He just appeared completely unannounced. That would be shocking enough on its own. Usually, when something important needs to happen with the royal treasures, there are meetings, paperwork, and lots of planning. But this time was completely different. William wasn't there to chat or ask for permission. From the very second he walked through those heavy vault doors, it was clear that his mind was already made up. He was holding just one single piece of paper, and the look on his face was calm but very serious. It was the look of someone who had been thinking about this moment for a very long time. That paper he was carrying was a special legal document called a custodial transfer order. He had looked it over himself, signed his name, and brought it with him because he wanted everyone to know exactly who was making this decision and why. There was going to be no confusion about that. The main reason for all this drama was Princess Diana's famous sapphire engagement ring. For months, this ring had been sitting in the royal vault in a strange kind of in-between space. It was kept safe, of course, but it had never been officially put under the direct control of William and his wife Catherine's household, and it hadn't been given to anyone else either. For a while, William was okay with this arrangement. He trusted that everyone in the family understood the unwritten rule that Diana's personal things should stay with her children. But then, just 2 days before his surprise visit, everything changed. A senior aide brought William some information that made his blood run cold. He realized that the confusion surrounding his mother's belongings could be used in ways he had never imagined. Someone might try to take control of them, and he couldn't let that happen. So instead of waiting around and hoping for the best, he decided to act fast. He was going to remove every single doubt and make sure his mother's legacy was protected forever. The officer in charge of the vault was completely caught off guard, and now we are left wondering what could have made William act so quickly and so decisively. So, what was this information that made William rush to the vault without telling anyone? Well, it turns out it wasn't just a boring update that could be ignored. According to the reports, the news revealed that Camilla's household had made a formal request that could have completely changed the way Diana's personal things were managed in the future. On the surface, it might have looked like a simple administrative review, no big deal. But when William dug deeper, he saw the potential for disaster. The request was to move Diana's personal collection into a different category called Crown Associated Ceremonial Asset. That sounds like a bunch of fancy words, but what it really meant was that Diana's jewelry, letters, and clothes would no longer be managed by her family's understanding. Instead, they would be put under the control of the reigning monarch's household. That would have given Camilla's office, which works closely with the king, a lot more influence over items that meant everything to William. For him, this was never just about a ring sitting in a box. It was about who would get to tell Diana's story in the future. He knew he couldn't just get angry and start a public fight. That's not his style. Instead, he spent 2 days carefully preparing a solution. He didn't want to just fight one request. He wanted to create a permanent shield that would protect his mother's entire legacy forever. He was playing the long game. Now, you might be wondering, why is this particular ring so important? Most people recognize it because Catherine has worn it for years. But inside the royal family, it means so much more than just diamonds and gold. It is filled with memories, emotions, and a powerful connection to one of the most loved people in modern history. The story of the ring starts back in 1981 when Prince Charles gave it to Diana after they got engaged. From that moment on, it was part of her public life. She wore it during her happiest times as a young princess, and she also wore it through the hardest and saddest times of her marriage. It appeared in thousands of photographs and became a symbol of everything she went through. After Diana died tragically, the ring became even more precious. It was one of the most personal things left behind. William later shared that he kept the ring close to him after losing his mother. He even wore it on a chain around his neck for a while because it made him feel closer to her. His brother Harry also had a connection to it, but when William decided to propose to Catherine in Kenya in 2010, he used Diana's ring on purpose. He wanted his mother to be part of that special moment. He said that even though she wasn't there, the ring made her feel present. Since then, Catherine has worn it to major royal events, making it one of the most famous pieces of jewelry in the world. For William, though, the meaning goes way beyond public appearances. He has never seen it as just another royal object. It represents his mother's story, her memory, and her love for her family. That's why he felt it needed protection that was stronger than just a family promise. Instead of starting a big public argument or getting stuck in endless back and forth discussions, William's plan was much smarter. He wanted a permanent solution, not a temporary fix. He wanted to close the gap that had allowed this confusion to happen in the first place. His idea was simple but incredibly powerful. He wanted a formal agreement that would put all of Diana's personal belongings under the direct care of his and Catherine's household. This would mean that no one could make decisions about Diana's things without William's written permission. The jewelry, the letters, the clothes, all of it would stay connected to the people who loved Diana the most. When the vault officer looked at the paperwork, everything was in perfect order. All the signatures were there. All the rules had been followed. This wasn't just a request. It was a clear statement from the future king about his mother's memory. Then came the big moment. The sapphire ring was brought out from its protected storage. William signed the official register and completed the transfer. For a moment, he just stood there quietly, holding the case. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. That ring meant more to him than just a priceless jewel. It represented Diana's amazing life, her painful journey, her deep love for her boys, and the unbreakable bond William still carried in his heart. After a few moments, he carefully put the case away, thanked the officer, and left Windsor. Whether you see this as a personal promise or an official decision, the message was loud and clear. Diana's legacy was something William believed deserved lasting protection. But the biggest moment didn't happen inside the vault. It happened afterwards, when the rest of the royal household found out what William had done. A short time after he left Windsor Castle, the palace's usual administrative system sent out the official notice that the transfer was complete. The message went to all the relevant royal offices, including Camilla's, and that's when the situation became impossible to ignore. It was no longer a discussion or a proposal. It was a done deal, officially recorded in the palace records. When Camilla received the document, she didn't react publicly at first. Instead, she read through every single detail, taking her time to understand exactly what had just happened. People close to the situation said she placed the notice on her desk and sat alone with it for several minutes, quietly thinking about what this meant. There was no angry call or rush to respond. The silence itself spoke volumes. She realized this wasn't just about a ring. It was about a major shift in how Diana's legacy would be handled forever. After that moment of reflection, Camilla started asking questions. She wanted an urgent meeting with King Charles. She wanted to see all the documents. And she wanted to know who else in the palace had known about the transfer before she did. That last question was very telling. She wasn't just trying to understand what happened. She was trying to figure out if she had already lost control of the situation. By the time she started asking these questions, the decision had already become an official record, making it almost impossible to reverse. When Camilla walked into King Charles's private study, the situation had already moved past her expectations. The king had already taken time to examine the transfer documents himself. He had looked at the process, checked how the decision was made, and understood that William had followed all the correct steps. During their private talk, Camilla made her concerns very clear. She argued that such an important decision should have involved talking to the king and her household before it was finalized. She said that her original request was just part of a normal review process, not an attempt to challenge William's connection to his mother's things. She felt his reaction had blown a simple administrative matter way out of proportion. Charles listened patiently to everything she had to say. He let her express all her frustrations. But when it came to the most important moment, he made his position known. The transfer would not be reversed. According to the accounts, his decision wasn't about picking sides between his wife and his son. He simply recognized that William had acted within his authority, followed the right procedures, and created a formal arrangement to protect his late mother's personal legacy. Charles also reminded her that there had always been a family understanding about Diana's things. Everyone close to the situation knew these items were deeply personal to William and Harry. Trying to handle them through a different administrative path, even by accident, had created a conflict with that long-standing understanding. After nearly an hour of discussion, Camilla left the room without getting the outcome she wanted. The transfer stayed in place, and William's decision stood stronger than ever. When William finally got back home, the dramatic events at Windsor were no longer just about documents and procedures. They became a personal moment for him and Catherine. He sat down with her and explained everything that had happened from start to finish. He told her about the information he received, the note that changed everything, the 2 days he spent planning his response, and his decision to go to Windsor himself. He went through every detail, from the vault officer reviewing the paperwork to the moment the transfer was officially recorded. Catherine listened carefully and let him finish without interrupting. She understood that this wasn't just another royal duty. For William, it was about his mother, her memory, and a promise he had kept in his heart since he lost her. After he finished, Catherine asked him one simple but powerful question. "How do you feel?" William admitted that in some ways he felt relieved. He felt that something that should have been done years ago had finally happened. What bothered him the most wasn't the decision itself. It was that it took an argument about administration to make the family create official protection for something that had always been so personal. Catherine understood completely. She reminded him that important things can't always be protected by trust alone. Diana's things carried too much history and emotion to depend only on private agreements. They needed a clear structure to protect them for the future. William agreed. This wasn't just about the present. It was about making sure that George, Charlotte, and Louis would one day have the freedom to decide how their grandmother's belongings should be remembered. After a quiet moment, William said the true reason behind everything. Beyond the paperwork and the palace politics, he had made that journey to Windsor for one person, his mother Diana. Although the whole world naturally focused on Diana's famous sapphire ring, the true meaning of William's decision went way beyond one piece of jewelry. The transfer wasn't just about where the ring would be kept or who could look at it. It created a huge protection around Diana's entire personal collection. The most important change was that future decisions about her belongings would no longer be based on casual agreements or private understandings. Any request connected to her jewelry, personal items, or treasured possessions would now need William's direct written approval. The confusion that had existed for years was replaced with a clear system that left no room for mistakes inside the palace. This move also showed something important about how William handles power and responsibility. Instead of reacting with emotion or making a big public scene, he chose a quieter but much more permanent approach. He studied the situation, followed the rules, and created a solution that would last long after the current argument was forgotten. That's what made his decision so clever. He didn't just settle one disagreement. He made it much harder for similar questions to ever come up again. The transfer also represented a deeper shift in the monarchy itself. It showed the growing difference between the current generation of royals and the one that's preparing to lead next. William wasn't just acting as Diana's son, protecting a personal memory. He was also acting as the future king, someone who thinks about institutions, traditions, and the responsibilities that come with leadership. Long before he officially becomes king, William seems determined to shape the monarchy he will eventually inherit. This decision showed that, when it comes to protecting what he believes matters most, he is willing to use every tool available to him. The transfer of Diana's ring marked a clear line between the current reign and the future one. Now, this is where the story gets even more interesting. Because when you look beyond the ring, the paperwork, and the palace disagreements, William's decision seems to represent something much larger. It might have given us a glimpse into the type of king he hopes to become. For years, Prince William has openly talked about his vision for the future of the monarchy. Together with Catherine, he has become the face of a new generation of royals, determined to bring meaningful change while still respecting the traditions that have defined the royal family for centuries. Many believe their fresh approach could shape the monarchy for decades to come. That's why the vault decision has attracted so much attention. William didn't look for public praise or create a big dramatic showdown. Instead, he quietly studied the situation, prepared the necessary papers, followed the official process, and created a solution built to last. This method has become a key part of how many people describe his leadership style. According to reports from those who know William's approach, he is expected to be a monarch who is willing to make hard decisions when he believes the future of the institution is at risk. Some have suggested that while King Charles often leads with personal feelings and relationships in mind, William tends to focus more on planning, strategy, and long-term results. When you look at it that way, the decision involving Diana's collection becomes even more significant. William was clearly protecting something deeply personal. The ring stood for his mother, his memories, and his family history. But instead of acting only from emotion, he used official systems and procedures to secure what he believed needed protection. That balance is what makes the decision so powerful. It showed a son honoring his mother's memory, but it also showed a future king thinking about responsibility, authority, and the institution he will one day lead. Because perhaps the real message from that day at Windsor wasn't just about Diana's ring. It was about William showing the world how he intends to use power when his time comes, quietly, carefully, and with a clear vision for the future. When everything was finally completed, there was no big royal announcement, no public celebration, and no fancy ceremony for the cameras. There was no crowd watching, no official speech, and no dramatic moment outside the palace gates. Instead, the event that secured one of the most meaningful parts of Princess Diana's legacy ended in the quietest way possible, with one carefully placed signature. A permanent chapter in royal history was quietly written. The completed documents were secured inside the vault, marking a decision that could shape Diana's legacy for years to come. Without seeking attention or celebration, Prince William calmly left Windsor Castle, got back in his car, and went home to spend the rest of the day with Catherine and their children, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But behind that simple ending was a decision carrying enormous personal and institutional meaning. What looked like a quiet administrative step actually represented something much bigger. It was a statement about who would protect Diana's story, who would preserve her memory, and who would have a say in the future of the belongings most closely tied to her life. The transfer created a lasting safeguard around Diana's personal collection. Instead of leaving her things open to changing circumstances, future administrations, or shifting palace priorities, the new arrangement placed them under the protection of the family members who shared the strongest connection to her. And perhaps the most interesting part wasn't the ring itself, but what the decision revealed about William. He didn't seek attention. He didn't turn the moment into a public battle. He didn't need headlines to prove his point. Instead, he focused on creating a permanent solution that would continue long after the conversation surrounding it had ended. That approach gave us a glimpse into the kind of leader William may become, a king who understands that some of the most important decisions aren't always made in front of cameras. Sometimes they happen quietly, through careful planning, patience, and a clear sense of responsibility. Whether people agree with every part of the decision or not, the message behind it remains powerful. Diana's legacy was not left to chance. William made sure that the memories, belongings, and symbols connected to his mother would have protection that could stand the test of time. And in doing so, he showed that he was not only honoring Diana's past, but also shaping the future he hopes to lead.